HC, and under his leadership, the Jaguars have already surpassed last season's win total with a record of 4-3. They are tied for first place in the AFC South, coming off a huge win in Indianapolis. Guys, welcome Jaguars head coach Doug Marrone.
Yeah!
Yeah, appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Coach, let's go back to training camp. We've heard from a lot of people around the league that the Jaguars, they just feel different this season. So you were already there. You're now named the head coach. What do you do to change the culture for a team that hasn't had a winning season in nearly a decade?
Well, I think, for me, it's going back, obviously, to the basics, the things that I was taught, coming up in the sport of football. Trying to get back to, as you're working with the new CBA and the collective bargaining agreement, of how we, trained prior to the new collective bargaining agreement, what we did in camp, how tough camp was, and try to simulate those things so that we can be better prepared for the season. And, having a hard training camp is not a bad thing.
Coach, now, I appreciate you taking the time, but I've been a young player in this league,
Sure.
and I know coaching changes are difficult for young players. And as a vet, I remember having coaching changes and looking at the new coach saying, okay, what is he going to do to win over the older guys on his team? So I wanted to ask you, how did you do that? How did you find the balance between proving to the vets in the team that I'm the guy for the job, but also rearing these young guys straight who are all wet behind the ears?
Sure, and Nate, that's a good point. I think, I learned early on when I first came into the league, I was the offensive line coach for the New York Jets, and Herm Edwards was the head coach and hired me there. And I came into a room with a lot of veteran players. And I remember a lot of the other assistant coaches there that had been in the league a long time, they had told me, they said, now listen, just because you played a little bit and, you have a little bit of background in this league, you're going to get 7 seconds of respect. And I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean 7 seconds? He said, well, when you first get up there, the first 7 seconds, they'll respect you because you have done things in your life, but after that, you're going to have to earn it. So for me, coming in, I talked to the players about, hey, listen, this is a two-way street. I've got to work hard to earn your respect as a veteran. I've got to be able to communicate. I've got to be able to listen to you. These are the things that I believe in, that are principles that I hope that, I can communicate to you to understand. And then obviously with the younger players, hey, they're going to have a different set of issues. Let's make sure we're communicating and trying to set a culture of winning that's going to benefit all of us.
7 seconds of respect is all you get for what you did up in Buffalo over those 2 years? I'm
talking about
respect right now, Coach. You gave them their only win in the past 13 years, so there's way more than 7 seconds of respect for you. What were you going to say, sir?
No, okay. Yeah, it's like what Nate says. I think a lot of times when you come in there, and each situation's different. I've always wanted to make sure that you got to be upfront, you've got to be honest. And my thing the whole time has always been, hey, listen, you may not like what I say. I may not like what you say. But at the end of the day, as long as we're telling the truth, we may not appreciate it now, but when we look down the road, you're going to appreciate it. And that happened to me a long time ago with Jim Finks, who was the general manager of the New Orleans Saints. I was a borderline player. Back then they had Plan B free agency. I'll never forget, I walked into his office and I said, well, listen, I have this contract from the Minnesota Vikings. I'd like to stay here. Why can't you just match it? And there was incentives in the contract. And I remember Mr. Finks looked at me and he said, Doug, the reason why we're not going to put those incentives in your contract, because if you play for us, someone was injured. You're not good enough. And I remember thinking, well, that kind of pissed me off a little bit, and I wound up leaving. But at the end of the day, when I look back, I'm like, you know what? At least he told me the truth. So I try to take that philosophy with players and just be upfront and tell them the truth. And that way we can solve problems and get things better and not go back and forth where these things linger on for a long time.
Yeah, you learn to be a straight shooter. Coach, we have celebrated Leonard Fournette so much here that it almost feels like he's one of the hosts of the show. I really mean that. I know he's rehabbing that ankle, but when he lowers his shoulder out there or he summons a Steelers tackler in the middle of a play, it fires us up. How does that fire you up and the rest of the team?
Well, I'm focused on the next play, and sometimes, like I said, you know, we had a situation in Pittsburgh where he lowered his shoulder and the team was fired up, you know, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm talking to Leonard going, you know, hey, listen, can we make the guy miss and score a touchdown? I mean, I'd like that too, you know, when we go, you know. But I do understand that, you know, and that's, you know, we want to be physical up front. We want to be physical in what we do. You know, we want to make sure the one thing about this league and with the lack of time that you have, we want to make sure that, you know, when I was in New York and I was up in the East and I was up in Buffalo, you know, for us and playing the really good Pittsburgh teams when they had Jerome Bettis and Deuce Staley back there in the playoffs, you know, the one thing we'd always be talking to our teams about is, hey, listen, let's see who's going to tackle in December, who's going to tackle in January. You know, and keep putting the pressure on teams to make sure that they get population to their tackles, that they're willing to make those tackles. And then let's get guys talking about, hey, listen, we're trying to make business decisions back here. And when that happens, you know, then you have an opportunity of getting 2 to 3 extra yards and putting yourself in a better situation for third down. You know, it's like the end of the game in Pittsburgh. You know, he breaks the run. I'm running for him to go down. I'm thinking, there's no way he's going to go down. And the game's over. He's going to score the touchdown. You know, I'm going, go down, go down, go down. I know he heard me. He's like, Coach, I didn't hear you. I'm like, no, you heard me, but I understand what happened.
90 yards later, you guys won that game, and you just won on Sunday. And Blake Bortles might have had his best performance of the season. We're the national media. You know darn well, Coach. A lot of talk on Blake Bortles,
sure,
but he's playing well this season. What do you think of Blake Bortles thus far, and what does he still need to improve to get you guys to that next level?
Well, you know, there's so much on him. You know, everything is scrutinized, every single play, just like a lot of quarterbacks in this league. So I think that's something that we understand as coaches, we understand as players, and Blake understands that. I think he's done an outstanding job handling all the pressure, the criticisms, and things of that nature as far as coming in and working. And you can see when he plays at a level where we're able to get people open, we're able to protect, you know, we're able to score points, and that's the key thing. So, you know, he's doing his part. Obviously, we can always do a better job of it, but when everyone is in sync and everything's working, then obviously we become pretty efficient, and that's what our goal is.
All right, Coach, enough about the QBs, enough about the running backs, enough about the offense. Defense wins championships. Yeah. Let's talk some defense, baby. Your D became the first D since the '84 Bears to record multiple double-digit sack games in one season. Absolutely monster.
I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell everyone else. Hold on.
Oh!
Hold on.
Are you saying?
No, we don't want to. I played against that. I played against that Bears defense after they won the Super Bowl that year. I know those cats that were on that team. Now, hey, outstanding team. We still got a long way to go, but I'm happy with the direction that we're going, because I got that question in the press conference. I was like, stop, hold on.
Coach, come on.
Stop right there.
Coach, I know the game. I wasn't going to go that route. I wasn't going to make the comparison. I was going to basically ask you what makes him so unique, but I love the fact you were like, pump the brakes. We got a lot more to do. But what about that pass rush? What makes it so good? And also, how does that help the DBs in the back end?
You know what's interesting is that everyone talks about the pass rush, and I've said this before. I've never seen a good pass rush with people playing poorly in the back end. And I think that when you look at our sacks, you know, obviously a lot of credit goes to the guys up front, and some of it, it's well deserved, that credit. I shouldn't say some of it. It's well deserved.
But them DBs.
But really, I'm telling you now, those guys are covering like son of a guns back there.
I know.
I mean, you know, we got that, and the linebackers, you know, with all the underneath stuff. I mean, because you know how it is. You go back, you look deep, you go through your progression, you don't see anything, you're checking it down, you know, and you're getting 4 yards or whatever you may be getting. But you know, it's really a collective effort, and I think Calais Campbell has done an outstanding job for us, not only with his production that you can see, but every time that I hear Calais talking to our players, the first thing he does is he thanks the defensive backs. So I think that's important to me, to have an understanding of how the concept works, that, you know, the DBs are enjoying the success of the defensive line because of the job they're doing, but they're enjoying those guys getting the sacks. No different than when those guys get the pass breakups, and we don't get to the quarterback, our defensive line is celebrating, their past breakups. And I think that's what can make us a defense that could be special as the year goes on.
It all works together.
Thanks for giving us so much of your time on this Tuesday morning. You do have a bye week this week.
Hey, I'm on a bye week. We just won. We just won. I'm on a bye week.
So
I got time.
Coach, you need to come to the studio at some point during your next bye week. You're incredible. But what is the biggest thing that you are focused on, that you want your team to improve on during the bye week?
Well, I think, we can get really in depth from a micro standpoint, offense, defense, and special teams. But, generally, we've got to create a better consistency, with our team. We've been, if you look at it, we win, lose, it's been up and down. And right from the beginning when we won, I tried to make sure we had a big game in Houston, open up against them on the road with a lot of obviously enthusiasm. It was a tough environment for us to go into. But, the same thing right after the game. Hey, listen, let's not get too high. We worked. We prepared for this. Next week we go out. We turn the ball over. Hey, listen, let's not get too low. Let's make sure we're coming back. It's a long season, and we're getting ready for the players to come back here and go into a stretch. So there's a lot of things we can improve upon situationally of what we're doing. But I think more importantly, we've got to create a consistency and accountability and a trust for each other. And really, at the end of the day, I go back to a lot of things that Herm Edwards had taught me. Let's go back to that 12-year-old kid that was playing and enjoying it and loving it and just going out there and playing and not worried about, all the other stuff that's going on.
Nothing but respect for you, Coach. Doug, thanks for hanging out with us. Doug Marrone, enjoy some of the bye week, hopefully. I mean, you renamed a city. That's pretty impressive.
Saxonville.
Put that on the old resume.
No.
I renamed the city to Saxonville.
I'm ready to suit up.
No, we're not going to stop. We're going to celebrate it.
Monsters of the Midwest.
Calais Campbell has 10 sacks. We're going to talk about it the entire show.